Did you know that JJ McCarthy gives some of his NIL money to his offensive linemen? What a story.
I did not know. I know he's that type of guy, right? It's the meditation, it's the Zen, he draws the smiley face on his hand. He's a giving guy. I think this is a brilliant move. I think it's the age-old thing. Take your O-lineman out to B-dubs, give them wings, give them beer, and they'll love you for forever, right? And quarterbacks are going to get paid more. It's kind of just a redistribution of the wealth.
Why don't they have enough NIL deals for the offensive line? Why does JJ have to give his money up?
I think they do have enough, right? But you'll never, as an O-lineman, you're never getting paid what JJ is, right?
I mean, I guess.
I don't know what those guys are getting paid. I just think it says, as a quarterback, hey, man, listen, I know that part of the reason I'm getting paid is because of you guys. I'm going to hand you over some cash.
Do you think he talked to an accountant about the gifting rules and the tax implications?
What is it, $15,000 a year?
Yeah. Do you think he had that conversation? I don't know if he's giving 15 grand a piece.
This is valuable information
here. The way some
here.
of these kids are
not
making
just
money,
entertainment.
He needs to make sure that he's clear with the IRS on that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a Michigan guy, though. They got that handled. We're good.
Not exactly
We're good.
Sure.
We're good.
Anybody come on, get in trouble with the IRS regardless of where you go. I just hope these kids are doing it the right way. But I actually, in all reality, do love seeing this out of JJ McCarthy. Great guy. All intents and purposes. But this is Red Corner, Blue Corner right here on Stadium. My guy, Jake Butt, the Michigan tight end, All-American captain, all-around great guy.
Joshua Perry, also captain, also national champion. And my goodness, can we show them his shoes?
Yeah, I got the old man steppers on today. I got the Arab Monarchs because, you know, I'm feeling like somebody's uncle at the cookout right now. So. Got to get those out the way. I appreciate you showing
comfort and style.
Yeah, the old footwear right there. We want to welcome in all the fans who are watching us. This is an interactive show. We got a YouTube chat that is popping, so we want you to get in there. We also want you to scan that QR code on the screen and tell us, should Jim Harbaugh be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten? We're going to circle back on that conversation because we talked about it a bit yesterday, and we got some interesting responses from you, the viewers. But I want to dive into an Ohio State topic right away because TreVeyon Henderson, who was out last week, is expected to play on Saturday against Purdue. Now, last time we saw him out there on the football field was against Notre Dame. A guy who I think went through a slump last year, was dealing with some injuries a year ago, so certainly the right thing to take the precaution. But when he's in that lineup for Ohio State, what is he providing?
Look, he's different. Some of the other backs like Mayan Williams or Chip, like those are downhill bigger backs, right? And frankly, this offensive line, we've talked about it. It has not been as strong this year as it has been in recent years. And I say that to say this. TreVeyon is a guy that has the explosion, the agility, and the just raw talent to make things when they aren't there. He corrects issues across the offensive line. They didn't even get 2 yards per carry last week against Maryland. I think getting a guy like him back, particularly this week against a unique Purdue defensive front, it's going to be huge. It frankly has to be huge because they need to be more consistent.
You know, it is interesting, and I agree with that analysis on him. I'm watching the game tape back from Ohio State versus Maryland. I think toward the end of the game, Mayan Williams had some runs where he really started to run through those arm tackles, and you felt his impact. I think there were moments, and you know how it goes on the football field, where there's light and then it becomes dark right away, right? Like the seams only open up for a little bit of time, and he has the juice to get through those. And I think that next gear was lacking against Maryland, quite frankly. And I give the Terps a ton of credit for the way that they were able to defend, but I think TreVeyon Henderson could have been a back that would overcome maybe a little bit of that next gear that was missing.
The way the O-line, you laid it out perfectly. The way this O-line is playing right now is not dominant. So there's a hole, but it closes quickly. They're just not dominating people. So you look at a guy like Mayan Williams, he's kind of like a semi-truck. Once he gets going, good luck. Whereas TreVeyon, he's a Ferrari. The acceleration's there right now, so he can hit some of those holes. Great point. Great point.
All right, now we got to talk about the team on the other side of this matchup. Ohio State is playing Purdue, and the Buckeyes are heavily favored in this one. But you have to play the games, and just ask the 2018 Ohio State Buckeyes team that got upset in West Lafayette, and it's something that Ryan Walters can reference to motivate his team.
I've got some creative ways to just trying to give the history of this game and what it meant, you know, the last time that they were here. and so they'll definitely be aware.
I think a lot of people are aware of Purdue and their history of being the spoiler makers. They've got a really good record against teams that are ranked inside the top 5. Ohio State's coming in as the number 3 ranked team. So what chances are you giving Purdue this weekend?
You'd initially say not much, right? But they do have they don't normally have high chances, and they find ways to win. I just still think this team is still trying to find its identity. Under Jeff Brom, there was a clear identity. They're still trying to find its identity. I will say, to continue the conversation from earlier, an interesting matchup here is you look at the Purdue front.
Go ahead.
Is it a 3-4 or is it a 5 down? It doesn't matter. The point is there's 5 guys on the line of scrimmage that attack downhill. That means one-on-one matchups across the Buckeye offensive line. So this is a big, and they're disruptive as anybody. Their tackle for loss and sack numbers are high, right? So that's a matchup that Purdue has to win to have a chance, and it's a matchup Ohio State has to win to come out clean this week.
Yeah, the TFL numbers for Purdue, I believe, are top in the Big Ten, right? So you're on point with that. And you talk about the way that their defense aligns. Not only does it create single blocks, which means that it's harder to move guys off the point of attack because you can't get a double. As a linebacker, I love when there were single blocks up there because guess what I get to do? I get to flow, right? I get to run and hit and run, the things that I enjoy doing as a linebacker. And so Purdue is going to put them in those types of situations. I think Ohio State's going to have to say, listen, if we have better personnel, we better be able to dominate those blocks. I think the other advantage for Ohio State is this year they have done a better job than they did a year ago in taking the football away. The interception numbers are up. Purdue is a team that will throw it to you if you let them. They have to force the chaos and force Hudson Card to throw in some picks.
Yep, and really, if Purdue's defense is going to play so aggressively in the box, not a lot of teams want to do that with Ibuka and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, and Mecca Ibuka came out of that game last week a little bit banged up, but I think they said it's nothing too serious. So we'll see if he's out there on Saturday. But if not, Super Marv.
Those two banged up are I'll take them
pretty
banged
damn
up.
Good.
Okay, let's move over to a Thursday staple. It's our favorite game. It's called Pick One. And our favorite game in the West. A lot to decide here. Iowa versus Wisconsin. Let's talk about the defenses, Joshua. Pick one. Are you taking the Hawkeyes or the Badgers?
You know, I'm going to go with the Wisconsin Badgers. And you can see the numbers here. And on paper, there are a lot of categories that the Iowa Hawkeyes are better. But I would look at Wisconsin. You talk about third down percentage. That is a big one for me. The takeaway numbers really stand out there. Wisconsin's a defense that has more sacks up to this point as well. And so I like that edge, right? Like, I like when you can win on third down, and I like the chaos plays, the ability to take the football away, the ability to force negative plays to me creates a scenario for defenses to have success, even if they are giving up some yards.
Those numbers, I mean, Wisconsin's right there. It's surprising because we just would assume it's Iowa's defense. But I think I'm picking the Hawkeyes mainly because of the context.
Yeah.
I mean, their back is against the wall
at
all times, right? So their margin for error defensively is zero. I don't think that they're as good as they have been historically. But yet and all, if you give them a chance to create a turnover, they're going to do it. Sometimes they'll create them anyways. So should be a fun one. Both defense, 80% chance of rain this weekend. 15 to 25 mile-an-hour winds.
It feels like an Iowa-Wisconsin type of day, right?
It could get ugly. All right, let's go to our next one. Pick one. Let's talk about some running backs. Two good ones here. Nate Carter, Michigan State, or Kyle Monungai. These two will be matched up against each other this weekend.
You know, I'm rolling Nate Carter here, right? And you can see some of the numbers. I think the rushing numbers per game kind of puts Carter over the top, although he's lacking in the touchdown department compared to Monungai. But one of the things I started looking at is how versatile and how explosive are either of these players. And Carter's a guy who has more receptions, more receiving yards on the season. He also has more runs of 20 or more, right? And so when you're talking about that guy who can take it to the next level, I like Carter.
Yeah, and here's where Carter, I will say he's probably benefited from Michigan State passing attack that's more willing and at times, even though it hasn't been perfect, capable.
Sure.
You know, that's not Wimsatt's. That's not been Wimsatt's strength.
Right.
I'm going with Monungai. What I really like is when you turn on the tape, that dude runs through defenders like they said something about his mama.
Yeah.
He runs angry, dude. He's got something to prove on any given week. And frankly, with that in mind, understanding Wimsatt, no defense is sitting back there saying, man, we got a scheme for this Rutgers pass game. They're going to overload the box. Monungai's done a good job of stepping up.
Monungai has forced 29 missed tackles on the season compared to 16 for Carter.
Yeah.
So to your point, the ability into a stacked box to say, I'm just going to create the yards, Monunga is doing that.
He consistently makes the first guy miss.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of a good running back. All right, last one here. Pick one basketball school to be good at football. We're calling them basketball schools. All right, so we got Indiana and Illinois.
All right, so I'm going to go Illinois, and I think that there is a history here that they can really lean into. So they've claimed 5 national titles. They've got 15 conference titles, over 500 for the history of their program. They, a bunch of consensus All-Americans, more than Indiana, I know that for sure. You got Dick Butkus, RIP, but, you can lean into the history of some of the great players. How about our good friend Howard Griffith, I believe 8 touchdowns in a game? Like, you got stuff like that to really lean into that Indiana doesn't.
So we've disagreed on the previous 2. We're going to agree on this one. And you provided the data. I'm just going to provide the emotion, because let's go back to the COVID year where Indiana was successful, and it was just like, wait a second, man. There was like ripples of confusion in the universe. I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. When Illinois was rolling last year with Brett Bielema, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, no offense. I want Tom Allen. I want the Hoosiers to succeed here. But to me, it makes more sense to me that Illinois has the chance to be the more successful team.
Yeah, it feels like more of a place that has embraced football historically. And I think their fan base gets a little bit more upset when they're not good at football. So, Illinois, we're rooting for you. Indiana, we're rooting for you too. It's just a tough path for both of these teams this year. Now, speaking of Illinois, let's hand it off to Illini alum and host of Live on the Line, Brad Evans, for his pick of the week.
My Illini are terrible. And that's why I'm going to lay the points and take the Maryland Terrapins minus 14 at home. They're absolutely going to knock around my ILL in this game, as Illinois is outside the top 70 EPA offense and EPA defense. Maryland can put some crooked numbers on the scoreboard. Number 16 in the nation in total EPA offense. Tagovailoa is going to operate uninhibitedly against a secondary that has been roasty-toasty, to say the least. And Illinois' turnstile offensive line is going to put Luke Altmaier under assault in this game. So tally it all up, lay the heavy chalk, take the Terps internal power, minus 110 at BetMGM. Bartender, please pour me a stiff drink.
No stiff drink needed here, Brad. You bring the juice every single week, so thank you for that. And be sure to join him in the Live on the Line crew every weekday at noon Eastern to get your daily fix of sports betting. That's right here on Stadium. And coming up, we'll be making our own picks for this week's games. Joshua and I are looking to go 5-0. And we also have a special guest joining us in Annie Agar. She's going to help us pick some winners as well. More Red Corner, Blue Corner on the other side of the break.